once again, this is a misuse of that power. We can be free and safe, but we have to be vigilant in order to be able to ensure that the freedom occurs. No one wants another terrorist attack. The ACLU certainly doesn't. But what we do want is that the freedom is not, or that the safety is not at the expense of our freedom. And that's a very important issue for the ACLU. We also have, in addition to the JTTF, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, and the national security letters, you also have the whole issue of NSA spying. The NSA listening in on telephone calls and on, with respect to the internet communications. We also have the situation whereby the NSA is collecting phone contacts from people's phones. The problem here is for local government that information, while it's not being gathered by local government, might be stored with local government. And I think it's important that local government understand that information is unconstitutional. That getting that type of information without even a warrant, even a FISA warrant, which is probably worth only the paper it's written on, but even without that warrant, people are gathering this information and it's being stored. And if it's being stored here, it's inappropriate. You have a wonderful resolution before you. You have a very thoughtful board, and I'm very encouraged that the Pitkin County Board of Commissioners and City Council is considering taking a stand for the Bill of Rights. Thank you.
Thank you. There are several people who are going to speak during the public session, but I do not. What I wanted to do is I just copied the statute on the oath of office.
Okay.
And I just wanted to make sure you got copies. Just as a parting comment on my own, one of the real problems here is having asked Congress to step up to the table is to make sure that Congress doesn't give it all away. I don't know if you're following Senator Specter's work.
Actually, I am.
But there's real concern that their oversight may simply slip away. So we have to also protect ourselves there. That's really all of our prepared presentation. I have asked John Van Ness, and who's behind me here, and what I want to do is have Kevin Doyle speak first. Kevin is the person who brought this to our attention in Woody Creek, and just share with why he did it. And then John, if you would speak, I can't. And then there are many others from the community.
This is a public hearing, and as a witness, we're not swearing you in or anything. We expect and we always receive truthful testimony from our attending witnesses at our hearings. However, please identify yourself by name for the record before you start speaking, so that if we want to make a transcript, your voice speaking your name can be matched to your presentation. It'll be easier on anybody who wants to transcribe. If you want, you can sit at the table. If you just want to stand where you are when you're making your comments, either way is fine. Kevin, you'll be first. Please give us your name for the record and your presentation.
My name's Kevin Doyle. I moved to Pitkin County in 1976. I moved here for a number of reasons, and one was that the Sheriff's Office was more of a peace officers association than a police enforcement agency, and that's what really kept me here. And I've enjoyed all those 30 years here as a citizen. I make wine, and I was selling wine down in Telluride. And as I drove into Telluride, there was a sign posted that said, "Welcome to a civil liberties or civil rights safe community." I didn't really know what that meant, but it just made me feel good. I'm one of those people that lives by, if you have money, you get justice, but if you don't have money, it's just us. And when I saw that sign, I wanted to know what was behind it. And I asked around town where the city hall was, and I found it. And I went up and I got a copy of the resolution number number 9 in 2003 that the Telluride City Council passed, and they felt that civil rights were being violated in the United States, maybe in Colorado, and they took stand and were proactive to do anything they could to protect their citizens' civil rights. And I was enamored by that. So I came back to Woody Creek. I said, you know, we're kind of like that way anyway. We've got the greatest sheriff's office anywhere, and they uphold our civil rights. But let's go ahead and formalize it and be a civil rights safe community also. I called Dwight Shellman, who was retired. I said, Dwight, I've got a little something here that I need a little bit of help with. And he said, Kevin, let me take a look at it, and that's why we're here today. I went to our coffee club at the Woody Creek store down there, and I was talking about it, and a local writer for the paper, Gaylord, took a look at the resolution and encouraged me to approach the Woody Creek caucus, which I did. The caucus, on February 23rd, the meeting was called by George Stranahan, put together a draft resolution with Dwight's help to make Pitkin County a civil rights safe zone. What does that mean? Is that you have due process here, that you are not guilty first. You're going to get a fair overview. So after the 30th, the draft resolution at the caucus was passed, on March 30th, we had a formal meeting of the caucus, not that they all aren't, and we had a revised resolution that was unanimously passed, and George Stranahan signed that. And he shows great leadership down there in Woody Creek. Thereafter, Dwight put things together and got this meeting here today. My point is this, is that small people that are just cab drivers and waiters like myself, can reach out to their elected officials and say they have a bona fide concern, even though I don't understand it, and I'm learning as I'm here. I just lived by instinct and felt the walls closing in on me, and I didn't know what it was. And when I spoke to all of you 2 months ago, you gave me testimonials about how your rights, elected officials' rights, had been compromised. So I ask anybody else that ever wants to speak out to reach out to their caucuses and their elected officials, and something can happen, as is happening today. And I want to thank everybody for being here. That's all.
Thank you, Kevin. John, you've been identified as a potential witness, and we'd like to hear from you. So,
thank you. My name's John Van Ness. I live in Woody Creek. I've been a criminal defense attorney since the mid-'70s. I was on city council, in fact, from like 77 to 81. And I'd like to make a couple of points, and one of them is that in Colorado, or in any state, people's rights are not protected simply by the United States Constitution and by the U.S. Supreme Court's interpretation of those rights, but we also have a Colorado Constitution, and very often when I'm arguing a case or writing a brief, I will cite the Constitution of the state of Colorado, because people in Colorado have more rights under the state Constitution than under the Bill of Rights, which is 10 amendments to the United States Constitution. And in fact, wouldn't hurt if everybody took a look at the Colorado Constitution. There are 30 sections, actually 31. The 31st section isn't really a Bill of Rights. They added this to deny rights to gays. In fact, how that got on the Bill of Rights, it says they have no right. So anyway, this is a very important. Every state has a constitution, and in Colorado, the Colorado Supreme Court has in fact stated that our state constitution gives citizens more rights than under the U.S. Constitutions. Second point I'd like to make is that the Constitution and the rights that are guaranteed under it are being steadily eroded by court cases that happen every day. And it's not just the Patriot Act, which has gotten a lot of publicity, that causes me concern, but it's these everyday, not just U.S. Supreme Court decisions, but other federal court decisions, state court decisions, and maybe even municipal court decisions for that matter. And what we are seeing clearly is that the executive branch of the government, this is nationally, and maybe in Colorado also, has just simply decided that they have more power than they ever had. And we see these bills being passed in Congress, the U.S. Congress. President just in his signing statement says, you know, I'll decide whether this applies to the executive branch or not. I'll decide whether the Constitution or what the Constitution says. And we have seen the judicial branch, every day you read something in the paper accusing these judges of being activists or God knows what. They simply don't have the respect and the influence that they once had, and it is the courts that ultimately decide what happens to our freedoms and our liberties that we've had for hundreds of years. This is not something new. And finally, the last point I want to make is that the American people as a whole demonstrate an amazing ignorance of what our rights are and what our country is all about. This is why we are not part of Britain anymore. That's what the Bill of Rights is all about. And I was reading the other day that they did a poll a couple of years ago, and a larger percentage of the American public could identify the Three Stooges than could identify the three branches of government. These people vote. These people write letters to the editor.
Are those different?
I can't remember that. There's Curly and Mo.
And the Secretary
Larry.
of Defense.
Right.
And Joe. Shemp was my favorite.
Pardon me?
Shemp was one of my favorites.
Shep?
Yeah, Shemp.
He was the silent stooge, or? Right. And this same poll, where the American public, I think it was something like 42% could identify the three branches of government. The next question was, do you think that separation of powers between the three branches is important, or very important, or not important? 80% of the American public said it was very important. They had no idea what they're talking about. So, you know, what this country needs, and what this state needs, and the city needs, and there are organizations who are dedicated to improving and addressing the ignorance of the American people. ACLU is one of them, right? There are other organizations, and unless people know what their rights are, they're just slowly going to be taken away. So thank you all very much for your time.
John, thank you for your service and your testimony. At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing. Please give your name for the record. Say as you will. You may come up and utilize the desk if you want, or if you want to stand where you are, that's fine too. So would somebody like to comment on this issue? Bob Nix, you were first.
My name's Bob Nix, and I'm a resident of Aspen and a former member of the library board. I'm not going to talk about, the Patriot Act or anything like that, because I think all of us agree with some of the problems. I just want to point out one thing. The first objection to the Patriot Act came from the librarians. Ordinary librarians all over this country, as Kathy will tell you. Librarians aren't a big lobby in this country. They aren't the NRA. But they stood up. Ordinary people stood up that says, what is happening is affecting our free speech. So I think it's important for the ordinary people, of course nobody here is ordinary, but for just the regular people in our society to to know if they just stand up, they can be heard, and they can change things. And it's important for a meeting like this for ordinary people to stand up. So the libraries did it, and librarians did it, and everybody else should. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Trish.
My name is Tricia McKenzie, and I'm a 40-year local, and I am an activist and an organizer for peace. And I would just like to echo what Kathy Hasuri reported to you. I'm one of the founders of Colorado Communities for Justice and Peace. And we have over 70 organizations in the state dedicated to peace, justice, human rights, and the environment, which includes the American Friends Service Committee and others. And we have an annual retreat every year in Salida in the summer. And before the 2004 election, 4 of our young student organizers were the victims of the harassment that Kathy reported to you. In fact, it happened just days before in Denver, and they were still shaking from it. Fortunately, these were young people who had been in the trenches a long time, organizing not only for peace, but also for gay and lesbian rights, and helping to organize the 4 Directions March down in Denver and so forth. But they and several of their other student organizer colleagues had these visits by the SWAT teams and others in Denver. And even though they had been active and trained, they still were very, very scared. So this is a very intimidating visit that these young people received. And it was interesting that the only reports we heard of them were people in our movement. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Yes, John?
I was asked by Dwayne to speak on the library issues, if you cared.
Well, I was going to do a public hearing, and then I was going to come back and get comments from everybody up here on the resolution. That'd be more orderly, I think, and that'd give you the opportunity to comment on things you heard during the public hearing. So I wanted to do that, but we will be taking comments from each of you at the table before we consider this resolution. So I want to do the more public comment. Yes.
My name is Jeff Wirtz. I've lived in the county and in the city of Aspen, in the county since 1995. I'm a criminal defense lawyer here and proud to be a colleague of John Van Ness. I have a couple comments on the proposed resolution. The first one is easy. I think it's a typo. Paragraph 8, you mention different local institutes and whatnot, and you say the Aspen Center of Physics. It's actually, I think, for physics. Anyone who knows me knows I've never been there, but I think that is the true name, right? Yeah. So that's the easy one. On the resolution, on the next page of the resolution, paragraph 2, you use the word citizens when I think we should use the word people. And the Fourth Amendment begins, the people shall be secure in their homes, etc. It doesn't give less protection for someone who's not a citizen. And I don't think that was the intent of this resolution. I don't think it should be. So could we please change citizens to people or persons? That would make it more in line with the Fourth Amendment, which I think is the idea here. And now, the next paragraph of the resolution talks about no agency or instrumentality of Pitkin County should, without reasonable suspicion of criminal activity under Colorado or federal law, initiate, participate, and assist, cooperate with any inquiry, investigation, surveillance, or detention, and it goes on to say. Now, there recently was controversy in this town when there was a federal operation raiding 2 local bars, and Bob Broadus, our sheriff, was not involved in that and wasn't given the opportunity to participate in, assist, cooperate with, or otherwise. Now, the language of this resolution, I don't know I think we should talk about how that situation should arise. I think everyone agreed back in December that it was a bad idea to leave our sheriff's department in the dark of this operation, which basically was a federal operation. And now how would this function? would our local law enforcement have to make a determination on their own that there is reasonable suspicion, or what? It's sort of the same situation. And I don't want to tie our sheriff's hands by this resolution, because I think he should know if there's some operation going to go on in this town. And I think it was a bad idea that he didn't know the last time there was an operation going on in this town. So I want to throw that out there and see what you people think about that. Thank you.